Carolyn. Thank you so much for being on the show today. My name is Andy Audate, and this is the Progression Experience. Carolyn, thank you for being on the show once again.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Thank you. It's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show, and the way that we met is ironic because social media brought us together.
Exactly.
And I love using social media because it's a tool that allows me to get in touch with different people all around the world. And you're in the Midwest, right?
I am in Minnesota, if you know where that is.
Gotcha. No,
Dead in the middle.
I believe the Timberwolves play there, right?
That is right. And the Minnesota Wild hockey team.
Oh, right on. Now, were you born and raised in the Midwest?
I was. Yep.
Gotcha.
Right in Wisconsin. And Minnesota and Wisconsin are river states, and so they're right on the border of each other.
So Carolyn is a speaker. She's an author. She's a coach who has a PhD. And that's pretty huge, especially a Black woman who has a PhD. And that's an advocate to me, showing me that it's possible, because Black woman with PhD, man, that's power.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm proud of it. I'm a proud mother of three. I have, again, I'm an author, a speaker, and a coach, and a PhD, but not so long ago, that was not the situation.
Well, what was the situation long ago?
Well, I found myself standing in line in the Salvation Army, waiting for food.
Wow.
Baby in tow. I had just escaped an abusive relationship, and I had left with 2 boxes and a toddler bed, and that's all I had to my name.
Oh my goodness. Tell me more.
I was standing there scared, overwhelmed, with a mile-long list of things to do in order to identify a safe place to live and also keep food on the table. And I had found that I had walked out of one fight, which was to fight the circle of abuse, because my upbringing and a lot of decisions that I made up until that point to get me to the place of standing in line in the Salvation Army, as you expect, I didn't wake up one day and decide to be there. There are many decisions in my life that I had made up until that point that got me there. My story began, a little bit of my background is, at 4 years old, my innocence was stolen from me by my teenage neighbor. And he continued to sexually molest me for the duration of time that I lived next door. I also grew up in a home that was physically and emotionally abusive. Some people might be familiar with discipline as getting the belt. I got the chopping board.
Wow.
And then also, the emotional abuse. So some days my mom would say to me, hey, you know what? I love you. You're special. You're a good kid. And other days she would remind me that I'm adopted, that I cost $10,000, and that I needed to earn my keep. So you can imagine the emotional roller coaster that I dealt with. And the idea of knowing your worth in a monetary value definitely makes an impact on a child's self-image. So not only that, living and growing up with that emotional abuse, my mom left when my little sister was 9 years old, and I ended up raising my little sister while my dad worked on the road to keep a roof over our heads. So with the combination and the definition of love that I understood, which was sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and abandonment, mix that together, and that's what I'm seeking. So at age 19, I fell madly in love. And I became pregnant and married. And it was interesting because as I tried to be the best wife that I could be, my husband loved me so much that he would monitor my food intake so that I would stay thin and still attractive to him. He would keep me up at all hours of the night, providing me feedback on how to be the best wife that he felt I should be. And he also promised me that our love was so undying that if I were to ever leave, he would end my life and then his own so that we could be together forever. So this was my definition of love. But my daughter was born, and I don't know if you're familiar with what colic is.
No. Never heard.
Colic. Okay, well, it's an interesting thing. It's where babies are born and they don't stop crying. So they cry and they cry, and there's really no explanation for it. But she was born a colicky baby, and she screamed for 2 months straight.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine being a young mom and having a baby that screamed nonstop.
So now, is it that there is something internally wrong with the baby, or is it
Um,
the way that the baby is?
it could be a mixture. There's a lot of hypotheses around it. Um, Environment, neurological system. It could be either of those. But at that time, she screamed for 2 months. And so you can imagine the amount of stress you're under when you have no guidance as to why they're crying. But then also, I was sleep deprived from a colicky baby, but then also I was emotionally and mentally exhausted from being up all night with those feedback sessions from my husband. So that continuous arguing. So what was interesting is that at her 2-month birthday, I was up rocking her all night till about 4 a.m. as the sun's coming out of the sky. I'm rocking and I'm praying, please, please, God, give me a sign, because I don't think I can handle much more. And as that sun peeked out of the sky, she stopped crying, and she looked me in the eyes. And as I looked at her, it was as if she was staring directly into my soul, and she was saying to me, "I'm your sign." And as the tears fell down my face, I realized what love was. Unconditional love. As love is unconditional, right? That's the love that I felt for my daughter. And then I also realized what love wasn't, which is unending self-sacrifice and suffering. So right at that moment, within no more than 5 minutes, I knew that I needed to take action and break that cycle of abuse.
Ooh.
And that was a transitional point in my life. A light came on, a fire was ignited. But you might be saying, "Oh yeah, 4 a.m., Carolyn, you got up and left, right?" That wasn't so easy. I found out that I was fighting a mental battle that had been built up over many, many years of low self-worth, of shame, and of overwhelm, of thinking of the unknown. What would happen to me if I left? Because my husband had promised me that he would make sure that we would always be together. So I didn't leave right away. It was a continual fight. But when I thought about the future and I thought of that, I wanted my daughter to have someone to look up to. I needed to make that choice. And so I did. I made that jump when I realized that sometimes winning a fight is surrendering. I had to learn to let go of the definition of love that I had held on for so many years to be able to embrace true love. And we escaped. And then I found myself standing in line at the Salvation Army, completely overwhelmed. And a person who meant very, very well said to me, "You know what, Carolyn? It's okay. Just take it one day at a time." And I'm sure you're familiar with that concept, one day at a time, right?
Now, what happened between now? This is your story is very intriguing, and I'm sure the viewers are going to be intrigued by that story. And what happened between you escaping, you having that thought of escaping, and you getting to the Salvation Army.
So the thought.
How was the escape? How did you actually escape? Was it, something in the middle of the night where you're running with your child and it's like in the movies, or?
No. I waited until my husband went to work.
Okay.
So it was during the day when he was at work. So I left between the times that he would call. So he would call in increments to check to make sure I was doing what he needed me to do during the day. And I left in between those times.
So you were in a controlling relationship where he wanted to know where you were and what you were doing at certain times.
Yes. So so to give you a picture of that, he monitored my time. He monitored what I was doing at all times within about 15-minute increments. Oh, actually, down to 5. I was not allowed to go to the bathroom by myself because moments of privacy might sabotage our undying love. So when he was at work, he would call and check on me. And there was usually 15, sometimes half-hour increments where he would check to see what I was doing. And so he had it monitored all the way down to 15-minute increments. He would calculate my paychecks and make sure that I had exactly 15 minutes to get to work between the time that I walked in the door, between the time that I left. And so I would get written up at work for getting so many phone calls because of him checking in so often to see that I was doing and I was at where I needed to be. If it took me 15 minutes, maybe it took me 20 minutes one day because there's more traffic to get home, then that would cause an all-night argument because I was obviously cheating on him within that 5 minutes that it took me extra to get back home.
Oh my goodness.
So this is kind of a picture of what it looked like. So I had to time it for leaving, and that's why I took 2 boxes and a toddler bed. That's all I could take at that time in order to get away. And so when I escaped while he was at work, I was able to secure low income housing, and then I ended up going to the Salvation Army to get food.
Now, your story. I think we're gonna put this a show about you speaking, and we're gonna get to that point. But I think this is not only valuable for myself as like hearing your story, but also different women. I was on the phone with a woman, and she was in an abusive relationship for a long period of time. She was actually my employee, and I recognized it. I saw the bruises, and I recognized it, and I wanted to help her somehow overcome. And I believe that it's not always about the messenger, it's about the message. So the message may stay the same, and the messenger may be different, and the way that the message is delivered could be different. And I believe this is an avenue for us to show how you overcame the situation, and for you to be an advocate for other women who may be going through something very similar today.
Yes, and and within that message, it's don't get me wrong, I didn't leave immediately. It was a struggle.
Right.
It's a struggle because it's a mental mind game that you get trapped in. Now, given my history, go ahead.
I want to touch on the fact how the beginning was. How the beginning of the relationship was, because what was it that he was abusive from the jump, or was it lovey-dovey in the beginning and then it transitioned to an abusive relationship?
Right. And that's how that works. No one in their right mind is just going to go ahead and grab up a guy and say, hey, you're going to beat me. Like, of course, in the beginning, it was great. You fall in love, you love to be together, and then it slowly increments.
So what did that look like when the beginning you fall in love? How did it look like? How did it feel?
It felt great. You fall in love. You want to be together at all hours, all times. You're having fun together, and you realize that this person, that you have something to offer. They find you attractive. They find that you can take care of them, and that's something that many women fall into, men and women, is there's something that's missing inside that you're trying to fill with another person. There's a saying that you attract what you see in the mirror. And so I attracted my husband because he was the type of person that I saw in the mirror. I had this innate need to take care of someone, and he needed taking care of. And so it seemed like a perfect match. So I had the way of caregiving, and that's what kind of brought us together. And so I felt needed then, and that was my idea of what a relationship should be. So I had all these predetermined ideas of what a relationship should look like because of my upbringing, and I understood that was love. If I could take care of someone, that meant that I was loving them. And if they benefited from how I took care of them, then that meant that they were loved. And so understanding that as I look back, but in that situation, I didn't see it. So yeah, we had all our time together. We spent all of our time together, and that was great. But then when I tried to spend time with friends, that meant I didn't love him, and that created an argument. Or if I tried to have an idea of my own or better myself in some way, well, that meant that I thought I was smarter than him, which meant that made him feel bad, and then that meant an argument. And then it continued and continued. Soon enough, it was, well, you need to make sure that you stay attractive to me, so you probably shouldn't eat that spaghetti. You should eat carrots.
Gotcha.
And it's very, very gradual. And it was communicated in a way that made it seem like he was doing it for my best interest. And then I thought that that was him loving me.
Now, so then you escaped and you caught yourself at the Salvation Army line. Now, what happened at the Salvation Army line, and where did the transition take place to where you are now?
So in that moment, so again, the person who had said to me, "It's okay, Carolyn, just take it one day at a time." And I felt extremely overwhelmed. I felt like, with this mile-long list of things I need to do in order to get a safe place to live and food, when I had nothing, one day at a time was just way too much, way overwhelming. And I felt numb, almost immobilized. Immobilized by fear and overwhelm. And so I had to think back and figure out a way to break free of this overwhelm so that I could actually move. And so what I did is I reflected and I thought, okay, when were other times of transformation in my life? And I thought back to that time when I redefined love with my daughter. And it was only a moment in which I was able to redefine my idea of love, find that fire, and then move forward. So I used that to identify moving forward, little pieces at a time. And that's where the 5 minutes comes from. Within 5 minutes, you can take a deep breath, find clarity, identify just one goal.
Identify what?
Just one goal.
One goal, okay.
And take action on that goal. So as I'm moving and I'm thinking, okay, one goal. I need to figure out how I'm going to now moving from one fight, which was the circle of poverty or the circle of abuse, breaking free from that. Now I found myself in a new fight, breaking free from the circle of poverty. Because you can work full time and you can work 2 full-time jobs and you can still not break free and not feel like you're getting anywhere, right? And so I had to break it down to, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to move forward in a positive way without getting overwhelmed and exhausted? So I had to break it down into just 5 minutes, one goal, one action. All right, Carolyn, you did one thing. Good. Now what's the next thing you can do? One thing at a time. That's how I...
You broke it down and you broke it up in 5-minute increments?
I did.
And each 5-minute increment, all you had was a goal.
One goal. One goal. Get out of bed. One goal. All right. Eat. One goal. Stay positive. Next goal. Get a job. Get a job. Get a job. And, just continually like...
So this is very strategic, and this can help a lot of people. I know Mel Robbins, she has the 5-second rule where you make a decision in 5 seconds or less. And then,
But for me, see, and so yes, breaking it down to 5 minutes, I needed that time to actually take where your blood pressure is lifting, you're getting anxiety, you're getting overwhelmed, and then bam, you can't do anything. And what do you want to do? You want a quick fix. You want to smoke a cigarette. You want to have a drink. You want to, do anything to get rid of that feeling. Right. But if you can take that 5 minutes to just breathe and gain clarity on your goal, to try and hone it in. And for me, I needed a lot more than 5 seconds. I had a lot of things I was dealing with.
However, the reason I brought that up was the 5-second rule. It's an actual rule.
Okay.
Now, what you created is a 5-minute rule, where in each 5 minutes you focused on one goal. Now, during that time where you're focusing on that one goal, or even focusing on 5 minutes, was there a time of distraction? Because in myself, I believe that there are many times that I get distracted, or I wouldn't even know when 5 minutes was up.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It's more of a moment. So, but for me, having it timed out, like, okay, woo, I gotta get focused here. What am I doing? What am I doing? And breathing and focusing and getting myself grounded, and then identifying, okay, what's that one thing I can do right now that I can handle doing? Okay, I'm gonna pull it up and I'm gonna search for my actions. I'm gonna search for a job. That's what I'm doing right now. And then the next time that I get distracted or I'm feeling overwhelmed, let's say, my phone's dinging and I'm there's all these other things coming in and distracting me, getting back to the purpose. All right.
Gotcha.
Take a deep breath. What is my goal? Again, focusing on getting a job. How am I going to do that? Back to the search and just refocusing and coming back. And so that's how I did it. And that's also how I pulled out a lot of strategies. So within strategies, as far as getting out of low income housing, how am I going to do that? Well, all right, you got to look at the system. The system's set up to fail. There's a lot of ways that you can fail. The more you work, the less help you get. The less help you get, the less, the system was created with good intent in mind, but does it truly work? I would challenge that. So I realized that I wasn't going to be able to sustain with making, $10 an hour. I needed to figure out how I was going to move forward, and how I was going to move forward. I had to go to school. But how am I going to go to school and go to work? What am I going to do there? And so mapping out a plan and focusing on that plan and remembering the plan. What do I need to do right now in order to get one step closer to the bigger plan?
Gotcha. Now, are you still in low income housing?
No. So what I did is I set a goal. So the first night that I was in low income housing, I got a knock on the door, a frantic knock on the door. And I opened the door and they said, "Hey, somebody got stabbed. You got to call 911. Well, I was the only one with a phone, so we had to use my phone. So they came in, told me, we had the police come. This person got taken to the hospital. And after this whole situation, I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm not going to deal with this every single day. I need to figure a way out. And I set a goal that I was going to get out, and I didn't know how. But as I started dreaming and planning, and the only way that I was able to dream and plan is because I was able to break it down in the first place. I knew I was going to get out of there. So what I started doing, and I figured it out, is I got a job. I got registered for school. And I figured out that I needed to work for cash. So how can I do that? I started cleaning houses. I started babysitting for other people. I started doing bartending for cash. And I had a full-time job on top of that for insurance. And I went to school full-time.
Wow.
So I slept probably 4.5 hours, 5 hours. And I pushed for a solid 4 years straight, grinding. And I got my undergrad. I moved into a duplex and like a townhouse.
Yeah.
That was subsidized housing.
How old was your daughter at the time? She was about 4 or 5 years old?
Yes. So by that point, she was about 4 when I was able to get my undergrad degree. And then I pushed on to my master's degree. Got a better job. And then I met my second husband and built a house.
Wow. That's a serious progression.
Right. And then I decided I was going to, I wanted to be able to teach, and I wanted to be able to share the message and help future leaders. So that's when I decided I was going to go on to my PhD. And while in my PhD, I did a lot of self-reflection, and many people had asked me, hey, you need to write a book on how you got out of that situation. What'd you do?
The abusive,
And what's that?
the abusive situation.
Getting out of the abusive situation, yes. And then also getting out of low-income housing.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, yeah, no, that's okay. But finally, through my reflection, I realized that, you know what, I could help at least one person. And so I took about a year of self-reflection, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And so that's what I did. It took me about 9 months to write my book. And I wrote my book about getting and breaking free from abuse, and then also breaking out of the cycle of poverty as well. And that's when I published my book. And my book is, the purpose of my book is to teach other people how to break free out of that overwhelm, to get out of your mind and put action to it. Because, you know, everybody's got pain. Everybody experiences struggle to some degree. And it's breaking that down, moving your mental stuff out of the way, and acting. One goal, one action. And just continually chugging forward using that method and building it up so that you can start to dream for lifetime goals. And what I did when I published my book, my purpose was to help as many people as possible, and to be true to that, and to be true to that mission of my book, I donate the proceeds back to the programs that helped me.
Gotcha. Very powerful. Now, let me see. Is this your now family?
This is my now family, yes. So my eldest, my daughter, she's taller than me now. She's 19. And then my guy, Dylan, here, who is on the right, and then Elliot is on the left.
So this is a form of progression here. You went from you went from an abusive relationship, and take this down. You went from an abusive relationship, escaped, got into low income housing, and said, I need to get out of this position in my life. I need to progress because I have a goal in mind. I have a dream. It took you 4 years, and you busted your butt for 4 years in school in different positions and got paid. And then after that, you transitioned out of low income housing. And now people are like, hey, I want to hear your story. I want to know more about you. And you published a book. And is the name of that book Fierce?
That's right.
Now, what does Fierce mean?
So Fierce stands for F, focused breath. Number one thing to do, you need to breathe. And Harvard Medical School has proven this. By breathing, we bring down our blood pressure, and we also clear our mind in order to focus. And that's what the next step in my Fierce method. I stands for identify one goal and one action. Then E stands for examine barriers. So sometimes we'll say, oh, well, I can't do that. Well, really thinking about why you can't do it, are you creating your own walls? And that's what that examine barriers stands for. Are these challenges really real, or is it something that you're creating on your own? Like for me, I had a barrier of leaving. The door of the house and leaving an abusive relationship is not the barrier. It was my own mental mind game of leaving. And so that's what examine barrier stands for. Then reflect and visualize your truth. So taking that time to reflect and understand what your truth is. Is it a truth that you've created because of your past, or is it a truth that's something that you're hiding behind, or is it something that is serving you? And so, and then the next one is courage, recognizing that you do have the courage. You have the courage in which to act and dream. Now, sometimes we forget about our dreams. When you ask any 4-year-old, a 4-year-old can blurt it out and they can say, I'm going to be a rock star, right? But as we get older, we forget our dreams. And, maybe because somebody said, with good intent, being a rock star isn't realistic, or you're not going to make money doing that. So we forget. and remembering that you have courage to live up to your dreams and your goals, or do your goals live up to you? And then co-creating your own reality within that. So you can't do it alone. Anyone who says, "Oh, I did this on my own, it's all me," they're lying.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot be successful on your own. You're just hiding. And so asking questions, asking for help, asking people to give you and help support you. Now there's one caveat to that. You can't be an ask hole, right? What
I
does
love
that mean? Ask hole. That means asking and not doing anything with it, right? So, but co-creating, bringing in your community, identifying who those people are that you look up to and you want to be like, and then create the life that you deserve. And then lastly, taking action, because you can suck in all kinds of information, but if you don't act on it, all it is information. So that's what FIERCE stands for.
Wow. Now, you're an author, but you're also a speaker. Now, talk about how your transition into speaking, and now why you became a speaker. You left the insurance job, you left the cash jobs, and now talk about what you're doing now and how you're making a move and helping progress the world.
So right now, what I'm doing, and the reason that I got into speaking is, one, I wanted to be able, with my book, be able to impact and help as many people as possible and push forward. And what I'm finding is the people that have read my book and have heard me speak, there's many more people coming up than the sole core of the people that I wanted to help immediately or initially with my book. So I have high school and college students who are using my book to deal with bullying. For example, when you go from class to class in high school, you have about 5 minutes. And when you're dealing with severe bullying, and how do you deal with that? One, you can act back, you can get in trouble, you can get kicked out of school, end up in the principal's office, or you can take that 5 minutes, it seems like a lifetime when you're being bullied. Take a deep breath. Remember that this is temporary. And when somebody comes by you and they're in your face and they're trying to get you to react to them, you remember the goal of, hey, this is temporary. I am out of here in 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. They're not going to be able to knock me off my goal. And that action is to keep on walking.
Mm.
And so I have high school students that are using this tool that help them deal with bullying, peer pressure, performance pressure, parent pressure. And it's tough being a high school student today.
Yeah.
And so this tool, I'm honored to know that it's helping these kids. It's helping college students. It's helping cancer patients. It's helping people who are fighting to basically get more of what they want and less of what they don't.
Gotcha. Now, when you speak, what is that your message, your core message when you're speaking?
Core message, within 5 minutes, being able to capture freedom and define the life that you deserve.
I love it. I hope this show and this podcast, when it's just the audio version, shows women that it's possible. That is possible. I'm on the website carolyncolleen.com/about, and it shows her family now. It shows her daughter and I visualize. See, you're a great speaker because I was able to visualize. And remember, what I do is I train speakers, and I was able to visualize your daughter at 4 years old in the low income housing. Now, the way that I visualized it may not be exactly how it was. However, I'm able to retain that story in my brain. And I was just very concerned, like, okay, what's going on? What's going on next? Wait, don't miss me there. Don't leave that part. Don't leave that part out. You know, what happened? What happened to your daughter? What is your daughter's name?
My daughter's name is Bronte, and now she's in college.
Bronte. Now she's in college. Mm-hmm. And because her mom decided to get out, her mom decided to progress in her life. And that's why this is called Progression Podcast. She decided to progress. Now, what has your daughter has your daughter, let me ask you that, has your daughter ever expressed to you the gratitude that she has for what you've done for her?
Oh, yes, yes. So what was neat is that she got to hear me speak and tell my story. And then she got to see the impact that was made on the audience. And then I had her stand up so that people could also see where she is today. And yes, she's expressed gratitude for giving her the opportunities that that other children might not have. Like I had to take that time to truly reflect and think, hey, when my daughter thinks about me, I want her to be proud of me. I want to be the person that she comes to. And, when people say, oh, hey, you and your mom look very similar. And some kids would say, oh gosh, no, I look like my mom. Or, hey, you're doing a lot of things like your mom. And, oh no, I'm not anything like my mom. I am proud to say that she is grateful to look up to me, and it's not embarrassing to her to say that, yeah, I am like my mom, and that's great.
Love it. Oh man. Oh man. And so she's in college. What is she studying in college now?
So she started with engineering and physics.
Gotcha. Now, how much more is your life different today? Tell me a little bit about your life today in comparison to how it was many years ago.
Well, my struggles are a little bit different. So, I struggle, like the struggle of waiting for the coffee to brew in the morning, because I'm definitely a caffeine addict. Okay. So the struggle's a little different, but it doesn't end. Now, remember, and this is one thing that I remind myself every day, and I remind the people that I share the message with, is that life doesn't get easier. The struggle continues. You just learn to cope a little better.
What would you say to a woman right now who may be in a similar predicament where they have young children and they're currently in an abusive relationship and they have thoughts of leaving, but hey, I can't do it because they're afraid of the unknown?
Yeah, that fear of the unknown is overwhelming. And I would say the one thing that I would say is you're not alone. And when you look at your children and how they view you, is that how you want to be viewed?
How is this person not alone? Because I can just imagine a woman right now who may be driving her vehicle, listening to this show, and she's saying, no, Carolyn does not know my situation. I am alone. If I leave, my parents aren't going to help me. His parents aren't going to help me. He's definitely not going to help me. He's the only one that's been working. I have no income. How am I not alone?
There's services that you can tap into. I had no family to fall back on. I didn't have that support system. My dad worked on the road. My mom was gone. I don't have uncles, aunts, things like that I could have fallen back on. His family wasn't going to help me, and he definitely wasn't going to help me. But there are programs in place. As long as you are tenacious and you take action to find those programs, they're there. There's housing programs, there's government programs, there's grants, there's places like Family and Children's Center that's nationwide, there's YWCA, there's different shelters that you can tap into. There's different resources out there. And if you go to your local county services, you go to your local nonprofit organizations, you'll be able to find those resources. And there's so many different social workers and community programs that will help you as long as you ask. And that was really hard, is setting aside my pride in order to ask.
Gosh, that's the most important part that I understand, is that you have to ask.
And that's the thing, is setting pride aside. And it's really hard because you set up this idea in your mind, kind of this fairy tale of what it could be. You're there and you have kids and you have a family and you're dreaming about what it could be. And it's never quite that.
Now, you're in many different publications. You're in news8000.com. You're in WIZM News Talk. You're in Link Magazine. You're in 25 News. You're in WVVA News. Now, when you go on these networks, what are you advocating to the audience that are listening?
To challenge perspective.
Wow.
The perspective around what abuse is, what it isn't, and how to break free. I'm also sharing a message of resilience. If you can take that moment and remember, the thing is remembering transformation. So we've all had moments of transformation in our lives. If we think back, for example, if you've learned to ride a bike, that's a moment of transformation. You're learning a new skill. You get on the bike, you fall off, you get back on, you fall off, you get back on. And soon enough, through that resiliency, you learn a new skill. It's the same way it works with everything else. Breaking it down to small pieces, taking that little step, finding success, looking back at that success, and then doing it again and building it up and creating that resiliency.
So the 5-minute strategy is a way that people can overcome that overwhelming sensation that they have. What is another way a woman or even a man can overcome a form of abuse, a relationship of abuse, or an overwhelming sensation?
Taking a deep breath. That's the first start.
That's the first start.
That is the very first start, is gaining clarity. Because we get so wrapped up in our mind to the point that we're paralyzed. So the very first thing, taking a deep breath.
Now, what does progression mean to you?
Progression means growth. When you stop in your journey of life and you look back and you see where you were and where you are now, and the successes that we fail, we succeed. We fail, we succeed. But as you're looking back on that journey of life, progression is where you've come from to where you are now.
Gotcha. Well, first of all, how can people get in contact with you, Carolyn?
On my website, carolyncalene.com. On Facebook under Fierce 5 Tribe. And also on LinkedIn.
Man, your story is powerful, and the way that you overcame your situation, that major situation in your life, I believe is going to help so many men and women in their lives, not only in abusive relationships, but whatever relationship or even self-sabotage that they're going through, realizing that strategy of it starts with taking a deep breath and have 5-minute goals. Goal number 1, wake up. Goal number 2, eat, brush your teeth. Simple goals, and that's how you can progress your life forward. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been an honor.